Previously on Cinema Gulp.
Welcome to the Valley. My predictions are what I thought Season 5 may be.
Dimitri and Jasmine. Either Jasmine and Dimitri left to prove. He's the biggest winner to come out of Season 4.
He's just getting bigger. He's in jail. Daniel's closing shop. Johnny is off chasing Mexico. Chosen is in town. And Silver's on a rampage. I think Johnny and Chosen are not initially going to understand each other. If Mike Barnes is back as a Silver minion, I can't wait to see Danny Boy's face on the scenes, but eventually we'll become Daniel and Johnny seem to put the bullshit in past other movies. Like much bigger for me. Hey.
Welcome to Cinema Gulp. I'm Ben.
And this is Mark. Welcome to Binge Drinking Cobra Kai Season 5.
What the? 5 seasons, Mark. 5 seasons. And though I could rank them in order from best to least best, I haven't disliked a single season. What do you think of Season 5?
So overall, this is definitely one of my newer favorite seasons, right? Right up there with like 1 and tied with 4, right? And I love that they up the ante, right? Up the stakes. You had a lot more action, a lot more brutal action. Right. I mean, that was definitely a surprise. Lots of humor was still on point. Right. I mean, you can't go wrong with a lot of these characters that we've fallen in love with for the past, 4 seasons. And I love the direction they took everything. Everything felt very organic in that regards. One of the things that I loved is there were so many plants and payoffs everywhere, either within an episode or within an episode that paid off like in a different episode. Just all over the place. Excellent writing.
I'm on such a high on the show that I could say this is my favorite season, but I could also say another one was. This one just had these elevated stakes for me that there was times where it felt like a buddy action comedy. Still no wokeness.
Get woke, go broke.
All that is channeling through this filter of Johnny. It go from the very first scene in the very first episode this season. He lets out a whole bunch of shit that you're like, okay, we're still doing this.
Yeah. I mean, it's Johnny, right? When you stay true to the character, you stay true to the character, right? I'm sure the writers know that. William Zabka plays him perfectly, knows it.
Yeah.
Johnny is just like one of those based individuals. He is who he is. He's unapologetic about it. And you just love watching what this guy gets himself into.
So many of the actors stepped up their game this year. I thought Zolo, Blue Beetle, we'll call him Blue Beetle. He was just great. He's always good, but he showed some extra range. For 3 seasons in a row, me and Devin were just like, I hate Robbie Keane. A kid from Airborne.
Don't know what I want to be when I grow up. Don't care.
I hate Robbie Keane. He's the...
I fucking hate that kid. I hate him.
He's probably like one of the more unlikable characters. But
He's a good guy. And for the last 2 seasons, he's just gotten better and better as a character.
Yeah, this was his best season yet so far, and I love the way they took it. Because, I mean, sometimes characters can be naturally unlikable, but I love the fact that they maybe they even recognize that and what the audience thought. And it's like, well, what better way to take a character that started from here and get them to here?
It was never the actor. It was never Tanner or whatever. Tori, I in my little predictions video I did right before this, I predicted that she was going to have some of those moments that's just tearing her soul out. And they didn't go as far with it as they could have as far as the torment she's going through, but they did a good job. And Peyton List is so good. Like you just never know what direction she's coming at,
Yeah. As far as the younger group of students, she's one of my like top favorites. Like her character has always been great, and you can tell. And I love just the conflict that's just always there, right? Because again, she's one of those characters just like Robbie. Deep down, she is a good person. It's just the situations that she always finds herself in, hammer her home, and just sometimes she just has to be the way that she is to survive.
Yeah, and it makes sense that the two of them would kind of end up together because they had just terrible. I don't know. They don't really talk about if she ever got into a life of crime or petty theft or anything, but she always had to scrape and grind because she's got this sick mother, which we got a glimpse of the hospital bed this season. That's it. This season was kind of like 2 seasons. The first 5 were very different from the second 5, and I loved that. That you're led to believe at the end of season 4 that it's going to be this big Mexico adventure, and it kind of is, but it's also very short-lived because you have a short series. What did you think of that whole couple of episodes?
I mean, I love what came together, right? Because you had a lot of emotion, you had a lot of laughs, and I totally had to get this. I totally have to get this out there on video because as soon as we saw Miguel's dad, the first thing that popped into my mind, I'm like, hey, they cast the Giga Chad meme guy. There was tension, there was humor, there was action, there was drama, there was emotion. Like that all flowed very nicely between all the characters involved there. And and I like that they kept it short and sweet so that we could get back to the main area, to the main cast. But, we had that journey with Miguel where, he really felt he needed to see his dad. He thought his mom was lying to him. Turns out she was 100% telling the truth. And, that scene that showed him like in tears when he found out the truth and he was so devastated. Just to me, it brought me back to the same scene where, he overheard Johnny say "I love you, Robbie," and just the emotions there. I'm like, yeah, although does a great job just showing Miguel's, emotions and everything that the character goes through.
So I want to get into spoilers because we both really like the show. Go watch the show on Netflix. It's streaming now. It's 10 episodes. Some of these episodes are longer than previous seasons, which is awesome and always welcome. But we got to get into spoilers because I want to talk about the fact that, and spoilers, 3, 2, 1, the fact that Robbie never told his dad the truth, and he just found out he tested the waters. He found out what kind of a guy he was, and he just he just walked out, and he's like, okay, I know, but I'm not going to tell this guy. Especially after getting to know him, you can tell like maybe that day Miguel was going to be like, hey, I'm your son. But then he saw how he acted the rest of the day, and he's like, oh no, he's like, this guy. And that scene you're talking about got really intense, where you don't know what his dad was going to do. When they got into the liquor store and he's like, I got to lay low, and he's taking the money. You're like, is he going to let this kid go? Like, because he's told him a bunch of stuff. But you're going to like Robbie right off the bat this season when he does the pepper contest. You're like, okay, they're giving him some shit to do where he's not just moping or whining over a girl or mad at somebody. He's having a fun scene.
Yeah, I mean, the great thing about that trip is early enough, he finds out the real reason of the trip, and he's upset, understandably so. But I love the fact that he kind of just gets over it because, like, I'm here for my dad, and even if I don't like Miguel, this is the right thing to do. And I love that, again, back to some of the plants and payoffs. I love Johnny buying all that random stuff. Sure enough, you have this Mexican candy, and then the Mexican candy gets used to be substituted for the pepper to trick the other guy to win back their band that got towed.
Yeah. I just love that scene where he gives him the little, he's like, Mexican soda. He's like, it's just soda, Dad.
Yeah,
but then he gives him the little sombrero bobblehead.
Yeah.
He's like,
I got you a little something to say welcome to Mexico. And don't tell me it's offensive. We bought it in Mexico. It's their idea.
That right there is like, that's like talking to the audience going, don't get offended by this thing. I'm in Mexico and I bought it here. Shut the fuck up.
Exactly.
Back home, those first 2 episodes during that, where they implant Chosen in as sort of like an undercover sensei, but he just gets made too easy to me. It was a little, I don't know. I was like, really?
Maybe they had to do that for the sake of pacing, right? But but at least it was still believable, right? Because Silver, he's well traveled. He's obviously been to probably all the parts of Asia, and I love the fact that they use like Kyoto whiskey as what kind of made him lose his subterfuge, right? Where they do the toast, and something as simple as a toast, because he sat there and completely forgot. Because I think from the start, he's trying to hide that he's not from Okinawa, right? Because that would be a dead giveaway of his connection with Daniel. So when he says kari, which is an Okinawan toast, instead of the other one, he got made.
Instead of kampai,
Yeah, instead of kampai, he got made. Just from one word.
There's a lot of standouts this year, but he's my favorite by far.
He's my MVP of the season also.
He's totally the MVP. They didn't make him into Thor, where he's a complete buffoon. He's still a complete badass, but they also made him fish out of water, which you knew they would do.
Yeah.
And they did it so good.
Yeah, and to reveal some personality behind him, right? He's not one-dimensional at all. And then once you get him like comfortable, he can show that he's got some fun in him. He's got some humor. Just like any normal person would be.
Yeah, and they really play off that life debt that he feels he owes Daniel. Like every time someone touches Daniel, he like tries to beat the shit out of him.
You get the feeling, especially in the end, when it's revealed that he has those feelings for Kumiko, and he never wanted to pursue her because he knew that she and Daniel had something special, and he never wanted to even like touch on that. Yeah. But then when Daniel finally gives him the blessing, the guy goes for it, so kudos to him.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering about that, even when we saw them in season 3, if there had been something going on. And it's kind of cute that he's like, I know how important she is to you. Daniel should have been like, dude, we dated for one summer 35 years ago. You're fine. Quiet. Two, like really, I guess one is definitely a cameo. One is a bit more than a cameo, both from Karate Kid 3, because we're digging deep here now, folks. Pretty soon we're going to have to start digging into the next Karate Kid, Hilary Swank one. But this one, we kind of all thought 90% sure we were getting Mike Barnes back. And we got him for 2 episodes, and he was fucking awesome. And they did exactly what I was hoping they would do with him, too. Like, again, they write these people to where you're like, how did these people on this show, 30-something years removed from a subpar Part 3 movie in the Karate Kid franchise that was tiring at the time, how was this guy always this interesting and this good? No, he wasn't. Mike Barnes was a one-dimensional cardboard cutout.
Like a psychopath, basically.
Just a psychopath. All he did was just attack dog. And
yeah.
In this movie, he's got like this business and he loves working with his hands.
Because it allows like even supportive characters to have growth, even if it's off screen, right? 30-some years later. You know, and it was a very believable arc in this case too, where the guy explained like he met this guy who was then going to be like his future wife's, his future father-in-law, showed him what to do with his hands besides just hitting people. And it was very natural to me, right? And then he inherits the furniture store, and that's now his life, right? He's the business owner.
I love how he's in episode 3. You see he can still kick ass, like goes up against Cho. There's so many. This is like the Marvel Cinematic Universe this season, the culmination of like every bad guy, or quote unquote, Daniel bully.
Yeah.
All coming together. To me, it was more exciting than seeing like Tony Stark and Thor on camera. It was like seeing Chosen fighting Mike Barnes, fighting Johnny Lawrence, fighting Daniel. It was crazy.
That's what I'm talking about.
The other one that is definitely just a cameo, because we do get Mike Barnes in the finale, but Robin Lively as Jessica returns from Karate Kid 3.
Yep.
And what was kind of a pointless character in that movie, because she never became a love interest. She was just kind of there. But it was really weird. When I saw her pop up, I'm like, oh, did they just give Robin Lively a part, or is she playing Jessica? And they're like, no, this is Jessica. She's the cousin of Amanda. She introduced the two, and you're like, obviously they didn't have that plan from the get-go. Yeah. But it just, again, it makes so much sense, because her and Daniel never had a romantic relationship. She moved away, and then she naturally is gonna have a cousin who moves to California. Hey, I know this great guy out there. Like,
yeah, I did. Here's something I would love to add, and kudos to the writing team for this. A lot of other modern writers would have done the, I don't want to say lazy, but less skillful way of that being like some kind of like exposition dump via dialogue, right? I love how this show gives audience credit to put 2 and 2 together, that you're like, oh, they're cousins, which means this is possibly how Daniel and Amanda actually met, and then the rest is history, without beating you over the head with it. The audience is smart enough to figure it out.
Yeah, there's one line where she's like, but before you moved out to LA and I hooked you up with Daniel, there was this Terry Silver thing, She's like, why didn't you ever tell me about Terry Silver? She's like, well, why would I? Like, he was gone for 10 years before you met. Like, it didn't make sense to do so. And then they get in a little fight, which is kind of fun.
The fight is also with the chick who cheated on the boyfriend of Jessica from the Karate Kid 3 movie.
See, I don't even remember. So I do.
Elizabeth and Rooney.
Until you texted that, I'd forgotten that she had told Daniel. She was crying in the scene, right? Where she told Daniel that he cheated on. That is crazy.
And that was the chick who then started to antagonize them. But I love how that serves like 3 different purposes, right? We get 1, you find out about that chick who was the cheater. 2, it helps Amanda to understand why Daniel's been acting the way she was, because she was justifiably mad at him, and I don't blame her for doing what she did, right? Where she's like, I need a break from you, right? But this whole thing helps her understand. And then 3, we get the awesome nickname that she got as Babe Ruthless. All that in one scene from this random ass character that they built off of a name that has a tie-in to the 3rd movie.
It's just people digging deep and having fun with stuff and having it make sense instead of just doing it for the sake of doing it. And I did not think we'd ever see Robin Lively on the show, just because, again, her character wasn't really romantic with him. Now that I think about it, even though they have her far removed in Ohio, the fact that she did get She got kicked in the stomach by Mike Barnes. I'd forgotten all that stuff. Like, she went through a lot of shit with the Terry Silver situation. Yep. So it made sense that she'd be the one to explain to Amanda, like, look, yeah, your husband's a hothead, but this dude is bad. Like, Terry Silver just last year, obviously he was so complex because when we meet him, he's changed. At least you think he's changed.
You think, yeah.
Well, but he also he thinks he's changed, you know? And it took like John Kreese and Cobra Kai to really turn him back into the psychopath. But in this season, he's your typical like late 80s to mid 90s cigar chewing villain. And it's fantastic. This season, you get that whole thing about the stuff he learned, the new kind of shit he learned, and the ruthlessness of the people that teach it. I mean, you get to meet some of those people that weren't his trainers, but people he grew up with and stuff. But he was scary this season for sure. Like, I mean, him going up against Chosen and stuff like that was exactly what everybody wanted to see. And we got to see it. And it was great because it almost insinuates that Chosen would have kicked the shit out of him, but Chosen was drunk as shit when they finally fought. You know?
Yeah, drunk, and then there was a distraction that caused him to take that last hit.
Yeah, because he did best him, you know, with size. Dude, this season, folks, this is Cobra Kai. It started out as like Johnny Lawrence teaching a little shit in a karate. And this season had two guys, one fighting with a samurai sword, one fighting with size in a big mansion. And it just never came off as hokey to me.
Nope.
Like, it just didn't. Like, I could see someone going, oh, the show is like, jump the shark. It's gone way off the rails. The delivery of it, it just hasn't. It just hasn't.
Yeah, not really, because even those weapons were plants and payoffs themselves, right? That same sword the Silver used was the one where that caught Chosen's eye, and he showed him the sword and told him about the history of it. And the size Chosen was just carrying around everywhere. He even had them at the club. They scanned him, and it's like, what you got there? He
just has them in his pockets. Yeah, like I mean, everything about how Cobra Kai was blowing up on every street corner, and that they would go corporate and have their own protein bars. It all makes perfect sense. It's a perfect progression for how all that would have played out. I'm happy to report one of the most played out, boring, dragging grievances of the show was Robbie and Miguel. Thank God for now that's over, because it was just insufferable after a while. Like, you know, they hated each other since the very first second that they saw each other 5 years ago or whatever. So it's nice that and they had a nice fight. It was another little payoff from the season 2 finale. I don't know. I thought it was lovely the way they kind of talked it out at the end.
Did we just become best friends? Yep.
Yeah, they did. And then I love how it took like three attempts from Johnny, and then the idea actually coming from Daniel about being a classic Johnny, to just have the boys duke it out. And like, I don't know about you. Actually, I'm sure you've seen this before yourself in real life, Ben, where sometimes we as guys, you know, you take your enemy or your frenemy, and sometimes you just have to like literally duke it out. You get it out of your system, and it works. Guys then suddenly, you know, forgive everything, they drop it and say, hey, we cool now? We cool. I think some of that came from the growth from season 4, because I think that all
I think
over.
It has a lot to do with Kenny as well, like that guilt's laying on him. He doesn't want to start any more shit with anybody else. Kenny's a real piece of shit this season, I gotta say. He's kind of the biggest bully like ever on the show. Like, who's been Kyler is, but Kyler's a pussy who gets beat up all the time.
Yeah.
So.
But I mean, not only a piece of shit, there was like, they actually dunked Anthony's head into a bowl full of something.
Oh my God.
Like I saw a glimpse of the water and I was like, no.
Obviously getting manipulated by Silver. I mean, they give you a couple of scenes where it's like, you're the leader here now, you know? Because Silver's like, shit, aside from Tori, this dojo sucks. Because Kyler's a goof. He's an idiot. He's not that good of a fighter. Thinks he is. But another one of the really cool things was the Devin Lee story, where like, I remember people on Twitter really upset when the first trailer came out and they saw her in a Cobra Kai gi, and they're like, what? Why did Devin Lee turn to Cobra Kai? And like, when you finally watch the show, you're like, well,
it makes sense.
Why wouldn't she? Like,
yeah,
Johnny recruits her to be the number one female fighter in the Valley, and then right after their first tournament, he leaves everybody high and dry, and she has nowhere to go. But now she's good. So I think she goes with this other hippie dojo.
She joined this other dojo. You could tell she was not happy with it, or at least by the methods.
Bored.
Bored. And the sensei was on the softer side. And then and then same day, here comes Silver buying it up, right? I mean, even if she went to a different dojo, she would eventually run out of dojos to go to because Silver was just absorbing all of them.
She was very hesitant too. Like she took her time. She wasn't buying the bullshit right away. She wanted to get a sense. But in the end, like there's that scene where Johnny like goes there with Chosen to confront Silver and he sees Devin, and this is the only time he acknowledges her presence and the fact that she has turned to Cobra Kai. He goes, Devin, that's one of my students. I got to go get her. And Chosen's like, well, we're not here for that. But there was never, and I know she's more of a minor character, but there was never a scene where she's like, hey, you left me high and dry, so I became one of these people. I mean, but by the end of the season, she flips again, so it's like fine. But I kind of liked her little character arc this season because it was somebody totally left high and dry from Eagle Fang, who wasn't maybe invited to Miyagi-Do because they were going out of business at the end, so she had to go somewhere.
I mean, I don't think Daniel ever had any interactions with her either, right? So like you said, no. Johnny took off immediately to go after Miguel, so she was just kind of left going like, what? You know, what do I do now?
And Tori was the only one that beat her in the tournament, so she's like, you know what, this is the person I want to follow because So that was a nice story. She wasn't as funny as she was in the season before because they gave her a more serious role.
Yeah, it was more serious.
I was kind of fearful for Tori pretty much this whole season. Like I just didn't know, especially when they bring in what's her name, Master whatever, the badass.
Kim Dae-eun? No, it's Kim Lee-dun.
Yeah, she was scary. She just didn't give a fuck about beating up kids. Like that's all she did, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, she was awesome as far as the antagonist role, right? Like right up there with Silver, and
she belonged in like Kill Bill. She kind of felt like one of those people. Silver is watching Tori. He knows that she's talking to John. I mean, I guess he never did, but they kind of kept you on pins and needles wondering if he knows.
They could tell she was being distracted. Her heart didn't seem in it as it was previously. So they knew something was up, but they didn't know what exactly.
Yeah. And then when they did the knuckle thing where they made her punch, what was
Stone.
It like?
It was Stone.
Stone. Yeah. Stone. That was brutal to watch. Like that's the scene where she kind of unleashes and she's just like, fuck you guys. Like my loyalty. I broke up with my boyfriend for this shit or whatever. But yeah, that would have shattered her bones. What do you think about the pregnancy storyline?
Well, I have to pat myself on the back because I think that was one of my predictions that I wanted, right? Miguel and Robbie becoming brothers, because
Oh yeah, yeah.
But no, I thought it was cool because it's it's going to be a new chapter in Johnny's life, and of course, again, the Johnny comedy with him googling or goggling what to do when the baby's coming, the way he handled trying to change his apartment, and then when he showed the box of condoms that he used.
Yeah.
Tiger Love. No, actually, it said Tiger Glove on the top, but then Tiger Love in the corner. I mean, I don't know where the hell he found.
Where do you even buy? Yeah, that's something you buy overseas. Yeah.
I mean, even the montage in Carmen's dream was hilarious, right? When she was picturing their future life together.
They had to go Top Gun. They had to do some Top Gun. Yeah.
I mean, but it's funny too because you can see Johnny actually having wearing off a little bit on her too, because where she even answered like, "Oh, well, you could even play this kind of music." And she's like, "Yeah, Metallica," and
Oh, and she says
she's on board.
She gives her first and only, I believe, F-bomb this season, even though it was part of the dream. When the sink shoots up, there was a lot more F-bombs this season, and not just in English, a lot in the Spanish scenes too.
Yep.
Usually they give you one or two a season. There was almost an F-bomb in every episode of the show. There was lots of F-bombs, and it, to me, that only makes the show better. I like Sam a little bit more as well. I think Sam is kind of sick of the bullshit. She's getting better like Robbie, where she wants to be better as a person and not wrapped up in a relationship. I think those storylines are going to come to a close as far as like being problems, and now they'll just be couples. At least I hope so. We don't need any more of the drama. And Hawk, not a ton to do this year. I was a little surprised. One of my predictions was like he's gonna be a bigger part of the fight because he's the champion. He's a bigger player. He still doesn't really get the respect he deserves. Like they're like, well, I guess Hawk won, so he should be the one that fights. And they kind of had him go out like a little bitch, but I get why. That it was this really sleazy, evil mood that Silver teaches Kenny. And it hurts Robbie as well, who's just like a fucking brick wall. I guess it made sense, but I was a little disappointed that Hawk didn't get a little bit more to do. He had some moments, but I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. I think maybe that was some of the, if you want to even call it like the weaker parts of the season, right? But not by much. But yeah, I feel like maybe they didn't quite have the direction nailed down for him, but they still needed him to be there. I mean, it made sense that they picked him for like the main fight for the, what do they call it, the Sekai Taikai, qualifier, because he was a champ. And I do love the scene that showed the maturity of the boys having like talked it out beforehand. So when Johnny comes to give them the talk, they're like, "Oh yeah, Dad, we've already talked about it. It's going to be Eli." But I agree with you. Sam was better. I still feel like she's like the weakest character of them all for me. But I like the fact that they are improving her, and I hope they continue to improve her. And like you said too, like I'm just tired of the relationship stuff. So I think now maybe with her finally being back with Miguel, it'll just stay that way, so we can just kind of see like just fun couple stuff instead of this will they won't they stuff.
If this new chapter goes the way I think you and I think, all those people are going to need to be together, because if this other tournament thing brings in all these new like really skilled people to fight, then they're gonna need to know what the fuck they're doing. I did not like Kreese in this season at all. The second time I rewatched the whole season yesterday, I ended up fast forwarding through all of his scenes because I just didn't care.
I actually didn't mind it because I found some parts of it interesting. I thought the way they shot the scene where he was talking with the lady, the local psychiatrist for the detention area, and you were seeing like all these juxtapositions of all these people in his life and the thoughts that they had, and he was going through and actually for once opening up about what he felt with their experiences and connections with them. I thought that was cool.
Here's the thing. When we're talking about the final episode, so we have a drunk Chosen, a drunk Mike Barnes, and a drunk Johnny Lawrence, all going to beat the shit out of Terry.
Everybody's drunk, right?
All going to Terry Silver's house to beat the shit out of him. But even though Terry Silver doesn't know they're coming, he's always one step ahead of them at least. And all his fucking crazy senseis are there. And those people apparently will murder. Like, they don't care. They'll just murder you because they're trying to kill people. There's a great fight with Chosen and Silver. There's basically Johnny just getting the shit kicked out of him for like 20 minutes in the finale.
Yeah, that part I felt, I wish they would have either had Mike been in the mix more.
Me too,
Or maybe that part could have been shortened because, I mean, that was a huge ass whooping.
You would have brain damage, dude.
Yeah, either you want to show that Johnny Lawrence is a hell of a tank, or like this was just, nobody could survive that. But they did have the classic second wind moment when, again, another one of those plants and payoffs. The baby ultrasonic little photo fell out of his coat and he saw it, and it just gave him just that second wind to just get up and start just fighting back like a fucking beast.
Zabka does some fucking moves in that scene though, dude. Like some crazy moves. I really liked that they used the young cast to kind of like do this heist thing where they're trying to download some stuff. That worked as far as like why the two groups of kids would start fighting again. Like it made sense. And there's some good moves. Again, all those kids are getting so much better at karate. They all have stunt doubles, of course, but a couple of them are doing a lot of their own shit, and it's pretty good. And there's some little moments in there. You have Devin Lee turning back and fighting with Tori against the crazy chick.
And then there's a lot of stuff that played out well with the kids, right? Because a lot of that stuff has to do with modern stuff that they'd be used to, right? The idea that they got, the fact that Eli and Dimitri would know to go hack a server because they are total nerds when it comes to that kind of stuff. The fact that the kids from Cobra Kai dojo found out because we have a traitor in the mix, right?
Oh my God, penis breath.
Penis breath.
I was like, I'm glad they had the balls to turn somebody. And it's like, he's like, who cares about him? So it's fine, And
then you, of course, got that fight. Of course, another wonderful plant and payoff from Chosen's lesson with the protect the egg. Anthony's, holding that iPad, the last one holding the iPad, trying to get the video to upload to show everyone what Silver's all about. Tori, fighting with the good guys now.
I really liked how part 3 came back into play. The whole montage of how he is just using what he remembers on how exactly to beat Silver straight up. Not like dirty, but straight up. Daniel also being drunk, but all of them sobered up pretty fast when the story needed them to. That's fine. That happens all the time.
Nobody makes me bleed my own blood. Nobody.
But that was cool. I like that resolution, but there was so much violence in this season, and I just loved that. Like, it was such, we have to raise the stakes. We gave you little tournament matches, that's fine, but we have to raise the stakes, you know, and they really did. So
Yeah, I mean, it's a karate show, right? You got to have karate.
karate, but just like swords, and it was cool, man. It was cool.
Remember in the flashbacks, we saw Kreese and Silver together training with their original master, or the original practitioner of this style that they do back in Korea.
Yeah.
And when they broke the VODs, you saw that there was like the little girl there. She broke the VODs, but Kreese, you know, took the blame for it. I think that was Kim, right? That's the granddaughter.
Probably, yeah.
So that ties her in because that was her grandfather originally teaching them. And I believe that she mentioned that in dialogue too. So she knows, because she even said like, hey, where's Kreese, right?
She was disappointed. Yeah.
I think those two will connect because we still have the Sekai Taikai tournament, right? There's no reason that the dojo cannot still enter. Both dojos technically could still enter the tournament, but this time it could be, I don't know who they find to fight for Cobra Kai, but Kreese and Kim, maybe they bring Kim's students from Korea.
I think it's going to be all new baddies, like you said, her students which is why you need all of our heavy hitters on the same team.
Yeah. So it's going to be these all new karate practitioners coming in from Korea or elsewhere. So you have Kreese and Kim teamed up. Maybe we get a glance of Chosen and Kumiko together, right? And a lot of people are asking from Julie from Karate Kid 4 cameo. Maybe she appears in season 6. Who knows? And then, of course, maybe depending if there's a time skip or not, maybe we get to see Johnny and Carmen's baby, right? Boy or girl, because that was also like touched upon.
So yeah, season 5 was fantastic. Did not disappoint. It was funny. It was entertaining. It had great action. The stakes got higher. A lot of the characters went where I wanted them to go. Some of them didn't get enough to do, but you know, some seasons you get more than others.
I mean, when you have a cast this big, you know, it is a really tough juggling act. So
it is.
To me, kudos to the writers for being able to do it very well consistently.
Yeah. Just get Anthony out of the show because I just don't care. 2 seasons in, I don't care. A little bit better this season because he wasn't such a little peckerhead. Whatever the final season is, you'll see every motherfucker that's ever been in the show in like either a wedding or something like that.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
a Johnny Carmen wedding with a big
Yeah.
karate fight in the middle of it would be so great. That's my prediction, everyone, for
There you
the
go.
end of season 6. Whole season's leading up. Yeah, you have your tournaments and all that shit. Johnny Carmen, big wedding. Every cast member that's ever been on the movie or show is there. And then there's a huge karate fight. All right, everyone. Thanks for watching. Binge Drinking, Season 5 Cobra Kai. We got lots more binge drinking coming up. Keep your eyes out and leave some comments in the comment section below on what you thought of Cobra Kai and other binge drinking shows you might want to see myself and Mark do. Until then, thank you so much, Mark.
Thanks for having me, Ben.
We drink your cinema.
I drink it up.
'Cause I'm just